Morning, everyone.
Can we hear you? Can you say test, test?
Test, test.
Yes, coming through. Want to make sure the right speakers were on.
It's coming in really great.
And we got the TV working today so we can see everybody.
Okay. So what'd you figure out?
It used to be we connected directly to the television, and the Canby folks, whose TV it is, have found a better connection through HDMI instead of wireless.
Oh,
So
okay.
they did a HDMI hookup but forgot to tell me.
Oh,
So I just had to hook up via HDMI and it went right through.
okay, good.
No.
So you're hardwired.
Semi, I mean,
Yeah.
the Apple TV is hardwired, that we connect to the app, what's called Apple TV, and it's hardwired. But we're still using the iPad to connect to that.
Right.
Dale just left. I sent him an email early in the week that he hasn't responded to, so I was gonna ask him a question, but he just left.
He's coming back.
Oh, there's Sylvia.
And there's our
There's
preacher for the day.
That's right.
I was getting worried.
And there's her sidekick.
I thought maybe Dan would give us one of his Sunday school lessons.
Yeah.
On the hard thing. Dan, you should lead worship some Sunday on the hard things of the Bible.
It'll take more than one Sunday.
You could do a synopsis
Yeah.
for us.
Or a series, you know.
Or a series. Yeah, we're going to do Sunday school again.
Oh, there
Starting
you
in
go.
the fall.
Well, I guess I could drag some things out of the dusty closet and shine them up, couldn't I?
Well, yeah, if we start doing first day school again in the fall, that'd be a good series.
It would.
Yeah, it would be.
It'd even be a good one to advertise. Other folks might want to join.
You have to think about that. It would be October or November before we could do that.
Well, we could work around your schedule.
Dale Doral, are you there? I see your name.
He's there and he's not there. So how are things in Iowa?
Oh, they're wonderful. We've had a little rain this week. The corn is growing like crazy, and
It's growing a foot this week, I know.
yeah, things are good.
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 Is it
It was raining
hot?
last Sunday and it had every other day or so, we've had another half inch or 3/4 of an inch, and it's just a
Wow.
nice gradual soaking we've been having.
Oh.
Good.
We've had downpours when it's rained.
Oh,
A couple tornadoes even.
But they've also said it was going to rain every day for the next 7 or 8 days, and it has not necessarily rained each day.
Yeah.
It's not rained every place each day. We didn't get any rain yesterday.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Dale Doral, I have a question for you. Did you get the email I sent you earlier this week? I was just saying, in the email, I was just asking if you had any additional information about your mom's service and stuff that you wanted in the July newsletter, since her service comes so early in August. So if you could email me any information today or tomorrow at the latest, that would be good.
Well, just 2:30 is right. 37.
Your audio's breaking up.
I can't understand you, I'm sorry.
I'm not
You're breaking up, Dale. We can't hear you. Hi, Dave.
Oh,
Morning.
I thought it was Hawaiian shirt day. That's on Wednesdays of FGC gathering, which starts today.
Hawaiian shirt any day you want.
Scoot that way, act like you like your cousin. She's got to move that Kleenex box to sit. Oh, gee. You're just off camera, thank heavens. Liz, move your Kleenex box and move that way so we can see Chipper. Well, we went to Ohio this week and visited, my sister was in from Colorado. That was the first time we'd seen her in 2 years, and her husband in 3. So we had a nice trip. We were talking about, I don't know how we got onto it. My brother-in-law saw me getting insulin ready, and he started asking about insulin and all this stuff. He's a very curious kind of guy. And I said that, it's all manufactured now as opposed to original when it was pork insulin. And I said there are no side effects, just like with the pork insulin. And Nancy said, except it makes him snort like a hog. And my sister, she doesn't remember saying that. The convenience of a stroke and vascular dementia. She claims she doesn't say it, but everybody just cracked up. And my sister, who snorts when she laughs, started snorting because she was laughing so hard. So we had a good time.
Steve, thanks for the mail.
Steve and Dan, how do the crops look?
They look great. They look great.
Right here, they look really good.
Try again, Dan.
What was that again?
I say, try again. I heard Steve, I didn't hear you.
Crops look really good here.
Got all the rain you wanted this week?
Just barely, yes.
Good.
I think the corn's grown a foot in a week, if not more.
Probably more.
Where are you, Dan Berger?
In my kitchen
In your kitchen?
on Miles Road, yeah.
Okay.
Where are you?
In a state of sleepiness.
I enjoyed getting back up to a friend's meeting house and around Mooresville and Indianapolis last week for a couple of days.
Well, I appreciate all your work on the grounds.
We had a slave driver.
Well, I had lunch with the pastor of Canby Tabernacle Friday and talked about just a few of the things that we talked about perhaps they might be willing to take over the groundskeeping in a next iteration of an agreement. And he said that they'd be happy to do that. So we'll see. He also said one of his friends who was with us, Juan, said, make sure that Neil does it himself. And I said, is he any good at it? And he goes, no. I said, well, good. Then we don't want him doing it because we want it done right. And so they all laughed, but Neil goes, yeah, that's something we think we could take on. So that's something for us to discuss at our next meeting.
So they did a little bit, they have done a little bit before.
Yeah, well, they cleaned the front beds and put mulch down a couple weeks ago, just after chatting about it. But they may be willing to take on the whole thing of lawn care and snow removal as far as paying for it and then doing it. So
That would be wonderful.
they really like it here. He was telling other folks at lunch about just how he felt led while they were at a family camp 3 years ago, to send me an email to see if we might ever think about renting space. And that was after we had decided we considered doing that with another congregation. So seems like God was moving.
How are John and Betty this morning?
We're fine.
Well, thank you.
You have your minutes all written?
Huh? Say it again.
John, you have your minutes all written from yesterday's meeting?
I started on them. They're not done yet.
It takes a while.
I had to get refocused after the meeting.
Uh-huh.
We're doing Father's Day today.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Chris he was on call last weekend.
Uh-huh. So is he coming to your house?
Yes.
Good. What do we know about Norman?
Norma is standing at the back door at the minute with Lynn and greeting people.
I meant Norman Connell. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Norman. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry.
I haven't heard too much lately. It's just he gets weaker and weaker. Now, Steve, have you been to see him or talked to him?
Not recently, I have not. As I understand, he's not able to get out of bed hardly anymore.
No, he's not, but he would entertain visitors or calls. You just need to get a
Right.
hold of Ruth to make sure he's not, doing something else or asleep or something. And then
Right.
that's all you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
John posted a picture of him on his birthday the other day on Facebook, and said Norman was growing a beard, had a picture of Norman with his beard, said it'd taken this many years to grow a beard. So,
Evidently, he's to the point now where he can't shave because he was doing that.
yeah.
Well, we already miss him.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time for our prelude, so Norma's providing the music today. And we'll have joys and concerns after the prelude. Well, do we have joys and concerns to share before we go into silence? If you come up front so folks online can hear you, Chip.
I think we need to keep those people in Florida that have been in that caved-in building. It's just so tragic, and I'm just so worried they're not going to be able to find any survivors.
Hey, Brent, if you could adjust the mic a little bit, we could just barely hear.
Well, he was standing a little bit behind the mic. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
That's good.
Okay. Chip was saying to pray for the people in the collapsed building in Florida who are doing the rescue and their families, since it appears at this point there probably won't be too many more survivors. Friends General Conference starts today, their annual gathering. We might hold them in prayer. Quakers and race is going to be a big issue that they'll be discussing. And personally, I'm leading a workshop on Zoom that I've never led on Zoom before, so I would appreciate prayers that goes well.
I'm very happy about the appointment of Gretchen Castle to ESR position of dean. We knew Gretchen when they lived at Valley Mills, and her and Valley Mills had the coffee house, and I remember the little kids running around the coffee house. And then they moved to William Penn College the same year I did, and her father was a wonderful professor, one I'll never forget. And her travels through Quakerdom have just been amazing. And my most recent adventure was riding in a vehicle she and Bruce Burchard wanted to follow FUM leaders around and see what they do. So here we were in the back of a vehicle with Gretchen and Kelly Kellum, and we were trying to get to Samburu all together, and it was just amazing. So I'm so glad Gretchen brings that perspective to ESR.
For those of you who don't know what ESR is, that's Earlham School of Religion, our seminary, theological school. Let us hold these joys and concerns in God's love and light. Sylvia is our worship leader. she feels led, she can pray over these, and then we'll speak also out of the silence as she feels led.
Dear God, we are so grateful for this opportunity to gather from great distances to be in our faith community with you as our head. We come with heavy hearts about the number of people who are suffering in this world and who feel no hope. We ask that you would somehow give them your light and love and the hope that you offer. Ask that you would be in our worship this morning. We know that you are here. Help us know your presence, feel your presence, feel your guidance, your light and love on each of us. Amen. A few weeks ago, I heard someone state, and I can't even remember who it was or where or when, just the what. Anyway, I heard these words: being flexible is not the same as being ambiguous. Being flexible is not the same as being ambiguous. In fact, I felt like those words were dropped on my head like a brick. At least they got my attention because I think they might have been meant for me to hear. I think I am flexible. I think I'm open-minded. I think that taking time to think of other perspectives is a good thing. Some teachers on my staff when I was a principal thought I was frustratingly ambiguous. I had followed a principal who had served for 23 years with a very different style of leadership than I had. He wanted things to be very clean and orderly. He didn't allow us to put anything on the walls of our new school building. He liked having the same routines all the time, and he disciplined by intimidation. Teachers were never asked for their input for how things should be managed. And though I respected him in many ways, I vowed that if I ever got to be the principal, I would be collaborating with teachers about the decisions that involved them. And I did become the principal with the same teachers he had. But I found that some of the staff members were used to his style of running things and were very glad not to be involved in decision making. Those were the ones who were frustrated with me that I didn't make decisions for them. I guess they felt more secure in being told what to do all the time. The trouble for me is that they were sometimes right. I was not a strong leader in my early years as principal, or maybe ever, because I did not lead with confidence or boldness. Probably wishy-washy is more like it. And I know that I still rationalize that my habit of taking time to respond to letters and emails and in some conversations is good because it gives me time to think over things and look at the pros and cons and answer with a good answer rather than an impulsive answer. But sometimes it was, and still is, because I just don't know what I think or where I stand on much of what goes on around me. So sometimes I'm just ambiguous, and that's not helpful. But then I believe it's not helpful to always be set in our ways either. So I want to talk about flexibility. I asked Google about the definition of flexibility and received a response related to our physical agility or the extent to which we can bend without injuring ourselves. And I read that flexibility refers to a range of motion between 2 points you could not or should not go beyond. I kind of like that concept as it relates to a personality trait. Then I asked if flexibility is a good personality trait. And the response was that it is a good personality trait when referring to the extent to which a person can cope with changes in circumstances and think about problems and tasks in new, novel, creative ways. Flexibility is the ability to switch one's thinking and attention from one task to another, and employers say they like that trait in their employees. Another source said that being flexible allows us to face challenges and gives us the ability to change when it's needed. Experiencing a pandemic is maybe what comes to the mind for most of us. Flexibility and adapting to change is fundamental when it comes to overcoming adversity or calamities. Confidence that you can face life's challenges with a positive attitude will reduce stress and bring you peace. But does being flexible mean that we don't have principles on which we stand? If we are flexible, does that mean we are like that flopsy, air-filled, plastic, tall, human-like figure thing that gets your attention as you drive by the used car lot? We all know that when they turn the power off the air pump, that thing falls down in a heap and loses its identity entirely. I certainly don't want to be flexible like that. So, wouldn't I improve my ability to be helpful to people if I sort out my beliefs and regularly define the platform on which I stand before I answer? Would I be a better person if I were flexible enough to interact with people in a way that seeks to understand their situation, their condition, and their position, yet know in my heart and head my expectations for myself and how I must take responsibility for them? Out of stubbornness, do I ever show rejection or judge others so that they are broken by my actions? I've mentioned before that Dan and I have been reading after breakfast every morning some short devotionals written by Charles Ringma, who was born Dutch but now lives in Australia as a theologian. We like his writings because they are more focused on service and love and doing what Jesus calls us to do than they are our inner spirituality. We have finished the book in which he bases his topics on the faith and practice of Mother Teresa. We have on deck another similar book on which he bases his topics on the writings of Henry Nouwen. But currently, we're reading his book titled Two Horses. In this book, there are 70 proverbs he has gleaned from various sources on which he expounds. The title of the book, Two Horses, is based on a Russian proverb that goes like this: chase two horses and you'll catch neither. Am I chasing two horses when I'm ambiguous? This week, as I was considering what I would share about my experience with the words flexibility and ambiguous, we read a lesson from Charles Ringma on the topic of intentionality. Oh, that's what I need to work on, I thought. I need to check my intentionality or purpose every time I hesitate to respond to someone who's looking for my help. I need to hold myself accountable for why I hesitate. I need to define my motivation for not giving a prompt response that is strong and meaningful rather than mere avoidance. The lesson Ringma wrote is titled Intentionality, Putting Things to Their Proper Use. And it's based on the Dutch proverb that says, from the same flower, the bee makes honey, but the spider makes venom. It made me question if I reason that giving time to consider a situation before responding is good. Is my slow response the nectar in the flower, or is it the venom of the spider? Am I helping or hurting the situation? Am I flexible or ambiguous? I would rather be flexible. You have heard of and probably read several of Aesop's fables. Aesop was a slave and a storyteller who lived in Greece about 600 BC. His stories were told and retold for over 3 centuries before they were written down. Other people have picked up those life lessons and they can be found in other pieces of literature. The one I'm going to read to you about the oak and the reed appears as a line in Geoffrey Chaucer's epic poem, Troilus and Cressida. Chaucer's words are, a reed before the wind lives on, while mighty oaks do fall. It goes like this. A giant oak stood near a brook in which grew some slender reeds. When the wind blew, the great oak stood proudly upright with its 100 arms uplifted to the sky. But the reeds bowed low in the wind and sang a sad and mournful song. You have reason to complain, said the oak. The slightest breeze that ruffles the surface of the water makes you bow your heads, while I, the mighty oak, stand upright and firm before the howling tempest. Do not worry about us, replied the weeds. The winds do not harm us. We bow before them, and so we do not break. You, in all your pride and strength, have so far resisted their blows, but the end is coming. As the reeds spoke, a great hurricane rushed out of the north. The oak stood proudly and fought against the storm, while the yielding reeds bowed low. The wind redoubled in fury, and all at once the great tree fell, torn up by the roots, and lay among the pitying reeds. A reed before the wind lives on, while mighty oaks do fall. Are you a reed or an oak tree? The word flexible or flexibility isn't included in my Bible concordance, so I don't think that Jesus used it much. However, he did model openness and acceptance in his relationships with people. He did not have boundaries on who he should or shouldn't talk to or care about. He certainly had strong principles on which he stood, but he loved all people. In Matthew 12, there's a quote of the scripture found in Isaiah 42:3, which is contained in Isaiah's prophecy that the Messiah will come. Isaiah 42:1-4 says, here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I will delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. Jesus was not ambiguous. He worked for justice without shouting or arguing, and even though he himself was bruised at times, he was not broken. He worked to heal the bruised lives of others and bring strength to the weak. As his followers, we too are called to be informed and strong in our principles, but bend in new directions so we can help mend broken lives. We can do that by being flexible about whom we associate. We can do that by showing hospitality and even giving value to those who act and believe differently than we do. We can do that by looking for that of God in each person. We do not serve God well when we are so set in our ways and stubborn with our beliefs that we cannot tolerate those whose faith and practice are different than our own. We are called to stretch out of our comfort level to get to know and care for others. We must not be ambiguous, but rather intentional with strong principles of justice, fairness, acceptance, and love as our motivation. You know, the way Jesus did it.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, Norma. We'll now move into unprogrammed worship. For those who can, you're welcome to stay. For those who need to depart, blessings on you. And we hope to see you next week.
It's always interesting to me what things unlock memories. Music is often one of those things that does that for me. And as I heard Norma practicing on that last hymn this morning, prior to meeting for worship, I told her that I really liked that one, that it was one of my dad's favorites. The hymn is called "Are Ye Able," said the Master, and it's basically a conversation between Jesus and his disciples saying, I know you say you want to follow me, but are you really able to? It may not be a real easy path to take. I don't have a lot of memories of my dad because he passed away nearly 50 years ago. But one thing that I do know is that one of his goals in life was to follow Christ to the best of his abilities. And I've heard from people who knew him back then say that he did that very well. So I try to follow his example too. But I'm just sitting here this morning surrounded by memories of my dad and what a special person he was. And I really thank Sylvia for asking for that hymn and Norma for playing it. It's always good to be reminded of good examples to follow.
So I was thinking about Sylvia's message of flexibility and ambiguity, and then lens of example. I was thinking about the evangelical French church I grew up in, which was very unambiguous in its faith, but was very flexible in some ways about allowing us to explore ours. And they set a good example that way. I mentioned earlier, my sisters and I were together for the first time in 2 years, and we all grew up in that same church, and we were talking about the other churches in our quarterly meeting, and one pastor in particular who was both an example, unambiguous, and also inflexible. It was very clear that our church was a little bit too flexible, and that we, of all things, were allowed to go roller skating because that was just dancing on wheels. And I wasn't very good at either, but I didn't see the connection other than there was music at the roller rink. But our congregation was very open in that sense. I remember the example they set for me as a young man, young adult, allowing me to play guitar in meeting and even sing Bridge Over Troubled Waters as kind of a gospel anthem, which I was waiting for the backlash, and there was none. It was just accepting. And this idea of how they held their faith clearly, but gently, as in some ways, as I thought about it when I got older, as one might hold a baby bird, respectful and not wanting to crush it. And that always served as a good example to me about how I could hold what I believed without having to necessarily condemn someone who practiced different than me. My beliefs, not my beliefs, but my theology in some ways is a bit different than it was in those days in certain parts, but the belief that held us together was the great love of God and this desire to be able to follow the way of Jesus was embraced. And for that example, I'm grateful. Well, as we come to our closing time, are there any thoughts that friends would like to share before we say goodbye?
I just want to say it feels good to be back and it's nice to see everybody. So, it's good to be back.
It's good to have you here, Dylan.
Thank you. We're actually searching on kind of our own home church for us and for our Kaya and stuff. But we'll definitely be here every once in a while, so at least once a month. So.
Great. Well, it's good to see everyone, and we hope to see you all next Sunday as possible. For friends who are interested, some of us are going to go to O'Charlie's for lunch in about half hour, so we'll stay around and visit for a while. Chip's ready. I won't say why since this part's recorded, but everyone's welcome if they feel like it, and we'll convene there for meeting for eating at about a little after 11. So blessings, and see you all soon.